Pipes and drums! By the center! Quick! March!
What a cacophony! How's everyone tonight? I'll turn Brucey baby down. Hey! Oh, I better get the old metronome out of the way too. Hello, metronome. My name is Chris Quinlan and welcome to Melbourne Musos Facebook Live. I'm feeling very marchy. There's a couple of things, getting stuck straight into it. There's a couple of things I do religiously. I mentioned it the other week because of St. Paddy's Day. I usually do something of a Celtic nature on St. Paddy's Day, 17th of March or thereabouts with the show, whenever Friday is close to the 17th. And the other thing that I do is good old Anzac Day. I should say three things. Remembrance Day as well, where I start talking about good old snare drum, the snare, mate, the snare, yeah. But what I'm going to do today is a little sideways thing. I'm going to talk about drumlines, right? Whether you're in a good old marching band like my beloved old City of Essendon brass band back in so long ago. Shout out to Moonee Valley Brass, because that's the name of them now. They came fourth in the band championships, which are always held over Easter. I believe it was Canberra where they were when we came fourth back in 1990 at Monash University. There you go. All right, and there you have it. So, just last week, we sort of pushed why I'm talking about it tonight, you see. And what happens is that there's a marching band, right? Then you can have a Scottish pipe band. There you go, with the bagpipes. There you go. And you can also talk about the American drum lines, you see. You know, that's one of the reasons why I've got the old multi-stick here with the mallet on one end and the stick on the other. And there you go. And that's why I've got my metronome set at 120, you know, the standard marching thing. Now, I'll talk about that in a bit. 3, there you have it. And what goes on is that I'll talk about each little bit of a thing. Now, when you're seeing any kind of drum line, if I'm going to be specific with that, there's four main areas here. There's, of course, the snare, mate, the snare. And you've got your rudiments, okay. Now, there are the 40 PAS rudiments, Percussion Art Society, and they stem from the 26 standard rudiments that were put together in the 1930s by a certain Mr. William Ludwig, and with wonderful names like Sanford Moeller in the committee. They started with 13, added another 13, you had your 26 forever. And then you had... they were part of a thing called the National American Rudimental Drummers, NARD for short. Sounds like a cream you stick on your legs, ladies. I'm just going off to put on some NARD for tonight, darling. Okay, there you go. So anyway, I diverse. So what happens is they disbanded and got taken over by the Percussive Arts Society, which is the curator of them right now, and they added another bunch of them to make 40 all up. And they have weird names because if you can say it, you can play it. Can you roll your R out there? I'm starting to sound sleazy. Ratamaku. There it is. Ratamaku. Paradiddle. So, what goes on is that you have all your snare work, right? Now, what happens is that that's usually kind of like a first line of the drum line. But then what happens is that what you have then is the second line, which I'd like to talk about just a little bit, and this is why I've got these sticks, is the tenor drums. They're also called the multi-toms, if you like, and I'll put it there. And there's a couple of different things. When you're talking about a tenor drum in a pipe band, for all intents and purposes, it looks like a tom-tom, right? And then you have a shortened mallet, and you have a little wrist strap, and you do all the spinnage and all that spinning. There it is. But with multi-toms, they're quite symmetrical. You've got a small little drum right in front of you, and then they spread out. Of course, I've got the picture up there. I've just put it up there. Now, when I start talking about Doris, the drum kit here, one of the reasons why I have that over there is because of classical percussion, funnily enough. And one of the things that I do, especially with the triggers, and funnily enough, I've got an African kit set up. And what I'm trying to do here is to give you an idea of, like your tenor lines, your quads, they're often known as well. And what happens is you're getting these wonderful percussion things in time with the snare drum, all sorts of things. And then and that's what goes on. And they're, they have their tone. So when I'm sitting there, I've got the snares off here, so it's, for all intents and purposes, it's a tom-tom. I shouldn't have hit that cymbal then. I'm doing multi-toms, Chris. Note to self, discipline, mate, discipline. I shouldn't even be doing that. Ugh. Oh, put it back in. Shave and a haircut, 2 bits, and there you go. So, what goes on then is you have the bass line. Now, I'll put them up here as well. And what you have is the poor dudes have got to carry sometimes 3 bass drums. Now, when you're dealing with a typical marching band, you've got the one bass drum and away you go and you're keeping the beat, that kind of biz. But when you're talking about the American-style drum lines, basically you've got large, middle, small, small, medium, large, okay? And they're tuned, so you're getting a kind of a thing. Now, when I go down here, and I'm using the mallet end of the stick, hard mallet, there it is. See, that's not real, I'm talking bass drum, right? But when you're playing, when you see them, so there's one down there. There it is. So what you've got then is a cohesive whole in the sense that there's these wonderful percussive arrangements, even for bass drum, you see. And there you go. And then the fourth part of any kind of drum line are the cymbal lines. Now, when you watch me use the hi-hat, or the cymbals or anything, sometimes I'll do something a little bit different. Like, of course, we know our beloved hi-hat as well. But as I've done on previous episodes, I could just keep that going, a la Johnny Bonham. Now when I'm doing that, the splash hats, right? Basically stomping the old pedal down there. But what starts to happen is when you're actually seeing cymbals like this, and this is going back, you know, well over a century now, when you've got cymbals and you've got the leather straps and you're seeing, say, even back to New Orleans, you know, you're seeing the cymbals, certain techniques where it goes splash, chick, like that. So, get these out of the way, Krista. How stupid do I look here? There it is. I'm just sort of improvising, but to give you an idea of how it all come together. Now, what happens then is you've got your 4 little bits there. Now, when you're starting to do these kinds of things and trying to play it all together, you start to sort of split off. You get different things. What starts to happen then is the vertical and the horizontal, you see, because you could be doing your marching, like the snare drum rudiments. So you could get now if you go to, say, if I was to use as an example my grade 1 drum set manual, you know, sort of thing that's out there. You've got your triplet page, 1 and a 2, 3 and a 4, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. Sure, keep the triplets, but as a sideways thing, which very quickly bumps it up to, say, a grade 3 kind of thing, you could do triplets on the snare, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4, and then play your triplet exercises with your bass drum. Now, this is part of using good old Ted Reed's Stinkopation. When I used to use that book. Let's get out the syncopation. You get this. What's the matter? Stinkopation. Because it's a workbook, you see. It's not a teaching book. Ted Reed's Stinkopation is basically you've got a page of triplets, you've got a page of semiquavers, you've got quavers, all sorts of things. You've got accents towards the end, and you just use it forever in various different ways. Professor Alan Dawson, the drummer who played with Dave Brubeck there for a while after Joe Morello left, he came up with about 40 different ways to use the book. And then Ted Reed himself said, well, I'll just do spin-offs, you know, kind of thing. Stinkopation 1, Stinkopation 2, Fast and Furious Stinkopation. Do you see? And then, so you could get things like triplets. There you go. And so what you've got is, could you imagine, you know, on the footy field, you've got while the snare drummers are going. That kind of business, you see. Ha ha! There it is, love it. And there you go. And then, I don't think I have enough limbs, but then the cymbals would splash like it did before. all that stuff, all that biz. I've already done it. And, okay, never use the same joke twice, Chris. And note to self. So that's what you've got there. You've got 4 different parts. Now, when we start talking about, like, I tell my kids, there's an eventuality that you want 120. Okay, so it's your typical marching. There it is. Now, this is the vertical and the horizontal, you see. So what goes on is that you can do your rudiments. I'll keep it simple. And then what goes on with that, you can move it around multi-tom, quad style, if you like. And all of a sudden, you're starting to get this kind of quad style. I'll take the snares off again. And then... Now, when you're going to a room, it's flams. Double strokes. But because I'm using the mallet end, I'm thinking more like a quad style. As I said, the multi-tom setup. And what goes on then? You mix it up. So there's my rudiment snare drum style. Then I can move it around a little bit. And that's the horizontal style, you see. And then, if I go back to the 120 and talk about that just a little bit more. What happens, that's your typical marching. But you have different countries doing different things. Now, let me talk about the different places that have this kind of thing. Now, generally speaking, if you're marching along the road, the 120 beats is kind of a default. I've done whole shows on just 120 beats per minute. I mean, when I open up things like GarageBand and stuff and put on new track, it defaults to 120 beats a minute, which is half a second. 60 seconds in a minute. There you go. So what goes on is that there's your typical marching tempo depending. Okay. Now what happens then is depending on what country you're in. So if you're talking about some of the countries where marching and drum, snare drum work are big. You're talking about in Europe, you've got France and Germany, Prussia back in the day. And what you have is they will go to your 120s. But when you go to England, they will probably go down to about 100 and 110 simply because of the weather. Soggy, it's wet and rainy. So their kind of thing is a little bit down from there. Then when you get to good old Scotland with the bagpipes, and think about the name bagpipes. It's a bag. And then the pipes come in, that kind of thing. They will go down to about 80 or 90 simply because of the nature of the instrument itself, the bagpipes, because you have to wind them up. You can hear it like a... Oi! Love all that stuff. I get a bit. I just watch it. It brings back, like even last year when I put them on. By the centre! And you go, rang, and I go, heaven. Sorry, neighbours. There you go. He likes the bagpipes. We thought the drums were enough. He's going to start playing the banjo next. Sorry. Anyway, there you go. And that's what happens there, you see. I better get a wriggle on that. That went quick. So there's your 120 beats per minute. Okay. Now you could go straight off to your drum kit, and it doesn't have to. Doris is Doris, right? But you could have your 4-piece, your 5-piece. You could just have your snare drum in front of you. But if you're just going to play it, do your practice patch. Use your metronome. There it is there, whatever you want. And then what starts to happen, whatever drum kit you've got in front of you, start to use it like quads, you see. The only thing, like I said, I'll just repeat myself, when you're seeing the march, it's symmetrical, it's out like that. Like that. So you've got your small drum in front of you, and then you've got your quads coming out like that. Here it's a little bit more right-hand side, and that's one of the reasons why many, many years ago, 22 years ago I suppose, I got these with the triggers. The triggers came along around about 2010. Something like that. There you go. So what I'm doing here is trying to sort of emulate this kind of style of drumming. Go off and listen to, it's so huge in America, and they're wonderful at it. I love it all. Just sit there and bang, there they go. And I go, ooh, they're good. And when you're dealing with your pipe bands and your marching band, the best thing that I could say, the best thing I could recommend is going on and having a listen to the Edinburgh Tattoo that happens every year, and people come from all over the world to actually watch that, and you just see some amazing performances with these kinds of things, but probably more of a European style, I suppose. Now I talked about, seeing I'm doing that, talking about the European style. Sometimes I've found that when you're actually doing other countries in Europe, like Italy, sometimes they'll go faster. They'll actually do it like not a double time, but instead of 120, they'll push it up to 130, and almost jogging along the road with the brass going along. That sort of is. You often see that in any kind of Italian festival here. Given that I grew up in Carlton and I was the only skippy, I'm married into an Italian family, so couldn't get away from it, mate. Cristoforo, come mangia, vuoi birra? Yes, mama. There you go. I better start wrapping the show up, but I've got a couple of things that have transpired. All out of the blue this afternoon, I got a call from Jules Vines, who's a presenter at 3MDR FM, 97.1 FM. And has asked me to be on her show tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Okay, that's a bit early, but all right. And it's about the current situation. I've been a bit vocal. I did an editorial last week talking about what's going on. We're talking about Splendour in the Grass. We're talking about gigs falling over. And what's happened, the most recent thing, is the government initiative put out by Creative Australia. They're having an information session on next Tuesday. So they're addressing this awful predicament we are in with live music. Now, this is part of what I do. if I can be bold, when Channel 31 started, it was at a time when the government of the day was closing all the schools, and we needed a musical voice on the TV and stuff. That hence Melbourne Musos, plural. And, I'd go around, walking around for a long time, most of the 90s, with a camera on my shoulder, not just filming the show, but filming other people's show too. I said that last week. But the main thing about tomorrow's little interview is to talk about this. But also, when I was writing for Beat and Mixdown magazine from the mid-90s to around about the early 2000s, roughly, I'd get asked, oh, well, you've got to write an editorial about this. And then, okay, what do you want me to do? How many words? 500 words, 800 words? It was all... Do you have a photo with this one? Yeah, okay, put a photo in there or something. So I'd be part of the team in there with Mixdown addressing the same kinds of things. So that's what's happening tomorrow, talking about that for Creative Australia's release of what they call the Sound Check Report, amongst a few other things as well. So if you're there, it's 3MDR, Jules Vines. Thank you very much for the invitation. Just happened this afternoon. 3MDR 97.1 FM, Jules Vines, and there you go. And it's about that. There you go. Now, the other thing is I've got a couple of people that I would like to dedicate this show to, and a wonderful cheerio. Two is Tim Colopy, and a student of mine that I've had for a while, Lisa Munn. There you are. And that's for you both there. And there it is there, sending lots of love and light. There you go. There it is. Oh, I better get a wriggle on. So anyway, tonight's show is all about drumline, marching band, stuff like that, some of the instruments. And curiously enough, the patches you're hearing are actually an African-based, but they seem to fit. Oh, there you are. So I'll love and leave you with that. There you have it, you see. I hope you enjoyed everything. Oh, what's going on? Brucey baby. Sleep. Oh, ho, ho. Love everyone. Take care, everyone. Tune in tomorrow. Oh.